I started playing guitar in 1978 after discovering Kiss and Van Halen. It was the record Rock and Roll Over by Kiss and Van Halen 1. Two guitar players, Ace Frehley and Eddie Van Halen, single-handedly changed my life forever. And I've been running with the devil and rock and rolling all night ever since. Yeah, I definitely think it was Calling Dr. Love by Kiss. You know, it's kind of relatively easy, like most Kiss songs. And I remember I couldn't play full chords, so it was just power chords. And it was just one of those incredible feelings when I finally played it and you hear that sound. And I was playing, I don't even think I had an electric guitar yet. I think I was playing on an acoustic, and still, there was something about power chords that sounded so great to me. First electric guitar I got was one of those Sears combo specials. It was like $69.95 out of the Sears catalog. But I remember I got that was the Christmas, I believe it was like Christmas 1979. And I got the guitar and the amp, and I got a little Big Muff fuzz pedal. And I still remember, like yesterday, plugging in the guitar and amp and like playing it, and it was a clean sound. At that point, I was playing a lot the like the Chuck Berry blues, 12-bar blues. I remember them going, oh man, I got this cool box. Let me plug this in, this is gonna give me. And I remember the first time stepping on that Big Muff, hearing the feedback, because I didn't know how to control anything, and hearing the guitar whistling and then hitting an A chord and just going that amazing, incredible sound of rock and roll. And oh God, it was so good. And I remember my mother come screaming, Steven, turn that down! And then of course, I think like every kid who was into rock and roll, Smoke on the Water. So every different variation of that, reversing the chords, just trying to build upon that and just loving that sound. And then I do remember, probably, when I was about 10 or 11 is when I really started, digging into, starting to learn tapping. Even before there was Trixter, there was the first thing I ever put together, and it was kind of a fictitious, it wasn't even a real band, it was just in my mind. It was called Metal Madness, which my friend Tony, who I saw the other night, my childhood friend that I've known all my life, reminded me of. Because I would just take my friends and we would play in my bedroom, we would play Kiss or Van Halen. And I would put on the music. I would sit there with my guitar, singing and screaming into the mirror, and I'd have my friends, I'd say, you play drums, you play bass, just act and go crazy, and that was the beginning of it. That was probably, I was 11 years old, 1981. There was a pivotal moment where on my rec basketball team, there was a kid, his name was Mike Payne, who lived a couple blocks away from me in Paramus, New Jersey, where I grew up. And he told me, he goes, hey, I hear you play guitar. I'm a drummer. And I was like, wow, this is great. Probably a week later, my mom and dad brought me over to Mike's house with my guitar and amp, and that was the first time I ever played with a drummer. And hearing that for the first time, and the volume of that, I remember I was a little scared. Mike was a year older than me, so, and that difference of when you're 11 years old and somebody who's 12, those years, they're big back then. Because he's done things that I didn't do, and hearing that volume, he had older brother who was into Rush and Rainbow, all these great bands. And I remember having to keep turning my amp up. And that was also the time that I told my mom, right after that, I need a new amp, because this is not loud enough. Mike was the first drummer. in my band that I played with, and was very responsible for helping me ascend into the rock world. The first song I ever wrote, and I still play the riff to this day and laugh and sing the song, it was called Mistress. You're a mistress of the day, you're a mistress of the night, waiting for a fool and a fool to bite. Oh yeah. It was kind of like based on Making Love by Kiss, but I made it try to sound like Van Halen, because at that point, Eddie Van Halen was everything to me. In 1981, 82 is really when I discovered shred guitar. Ed Van Halen and Randy Rhoads were huge in my life. So everything I wanted the pinch harmonics, try to make everything, but it was based on that. You're a mistress of the day, and people still say I should record that song. First gig I ever did was an early version of Trixter, which for the first couple months of our existence we were called Rade, R-A-D-E. We played my middle school, Eastbrook Middle School in Paramus, New Jersey, where my dad was the vice principal. And we played the afternoon talent show or whatever, and it was mind-blowing. It was that first time of getting out there with a crowd and hearing, and it was all girls, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. They were all there screaming. It was it was like Beatlemania. And I remember playing. I did a guitar solo. I was very good early on at knowing how to put a show together from seeing Van Halen already. I'd already seen Van Halen live. I'd already seen Kiss, my first 2 concerts. So I knew, the show needs a drum solo. The show needs a guitar solo. We had a bass solo like Van Halen used to do. And I remember playing my first guitar solo. And it was just me playing so stupidly fast and, mistakes all over the place, but it didn't matter. And I had my big Ibanez Iceman guitar at the time, which when I was 12 years old, the guitar was almost as big as me. So you can see video of it, it's hysterical. But I remember playing and I'm tapping, and I did this thing where I do this descending sort of Randy Rhoads descending guitar line, and I went, I stopped playing and I went like this. I did like a, hey, that's it. And the girls went nuts. And from that moment on, I knew this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. It's magic. It's a great story how Trixter got discovered, but it wasn't Trixter that got noticed first. It was me playing in a Van Halen tribute band in Staten Island, New York. I think we were called Mammoth at the time, and it was some friends of mine, and they just asked me, hey, you guys want to do this? I go, sure. I've never played in a Van Halen tribute band. And the singer was this guy, Danny Johnson. He had long hair. He was like David Lee Roth. And I remember he came down from the lighting rig on a rope. And after the show, we were breaking down, and this guy pulls me aside. He goes, I love the way you play. You look like Eddie Van Halen. You got vibrato like him. And he goes, I'm a manager. Do you have an original band? Do you have a band? And I go, yeah, my real band is this band Trixter. We're playing next week in Jersey at this club, the China Club, where we used to play all the time, the all-ages scene. And this guy was Ken Mako. And he came out to see us play, and that's kind of the big break that we got, because Ken worked under one of the greatest rock and roll managers of all time, this guy Peter Mensch, who had Q Prime Management, who managed Def Leppard, Metallica, Tesla, and him and his partner Cliff Bernstein, who in the 70s signed Rush to Polygram Records. They were the biggest and the best at the time. And he said, Peter is going to help me with a band. And he goes, your band, Trixter, is the band that I'm going to take under my wing and manage. And that was the beginning of it, early 1987.